Hi. Thank you so much for joining me. This is the first time I have used the countdown feature on the live stream. I thought it's potentially quite fun, so I thought I'd go for it. How are you? Can you hear me okay? This is my mic. It should be rigged up, should be firing on all cylinders. I should just let you know that I'm also streaming live on Instagram, but I can't do that through the same browser. Instagram don't let you start live stream via different platforms. Oh, here we go. We've got someone here that's popped over from Instagram. So good to have you here. Please feel free to ask any questions that you like at all. And I'll do my best to help you. So today, this is not going to be the live I'd planned it to be. Okay. I need another light. It's too dark. Hold the lines, caller. It's the first time I've needed lights on for a very long time. It feels a bit like, almost time for slippers again, isn't it? But yeah, it's always warm in my house. I don't know about your house, but it's perpetually warm. But it was definitely a bit breezy when I went out for a run this morning. So yeah, it definitely had some 1st of September vibes. I woke up really early because obviously this is a big day. This is a quite important day, not only for you guys who are aspiring psychologists, but for me as well. This is kind of the beginning of like the season where more stuff is happening and people are really wanting support and perhaps feeling more uncontained and wanting more compassion. And I was just kind of excited to get started. And you may have seen my announcement earlier that the 1st of September is not all we imagined it to be, not all we thought it would be cracked up to be, because it seems the clearinghouse have not opened applications. It's been the 1st of September for as long as I can remember. Certainly when I first applied in 2005, I think it was the 1st of September then, and it's been ever since. And I guess reading between the lines, now we know what we know. When we look at the Clearinghouse website that kind of updates you that it will be launched in September, it doesn't say the 1st of September, does it? And so now we know that. We were like, So I feel like they could have been a bit more precise at that point, because that would have been just a little bit more transparent. If they weren't sure they were going to be able to get it ready, perhaps they could have said, because then everybody can temper their expectations. Because I remember when I was traveling in around the world when 2003, just after I graduated from my undergrad, and I was really rubbish at waiting when I didn't know how long it was going to be that I was waiting for like a ferry or something in Thailand. I was just like really tetchy and I really struggled with it. Whereas as soon as we found out what time the bus or the ferry or the train was coming, then I could relax, I could sleep, I could read my books. But my friend who I was traveling with was exactly the opposite. She was okay when she wasn't knowing, but when she knew how long she had to wait, she found that really, really difficult. So we were like the perfect travel companions. And I think I'm probably still the same. If I know how long I've got to wait, I'm all right with that, because I can pace myself. I can keep myself busy. I can be compassionate. But we don't know how long you're going to wait. Many of you were contacting me today to say, I just keep refreshing the screen. Thinking it might be updated. And I had some of that this morning as well. So I said to my husband, so I woke up at 5:30, because that is ridiculous. That is my life. I just keep waking up really early at the moment. It's so warm in my house. That's what I'm going to blame. And I said to my husband, oh, not at 5:30. He's not that guy. I said to him just after 7, it was supposed to be today. There was supposed to be, an update of the new website address. And I said, oh, I wonder maybe if they're going to update it and it will be like at 9 o'clock and, someone's going to come in, click the publish, and then that will be it. It will launch. And he went, no. If it's a big company, they'll have web developers and they would do it overnight. Web developing is always done overnight so that it will be ready for the day ahead. So he was kind of onto the fact that he didn't think it was going to happen today. But I decided to email them. And I found out they didn't answer the phone. I thought, I'm going to take this bull by the horns. And I tried to call them, but they didn't answer. So I emailed them thinking I wouldn't hear back, but I did quite soon after I'd emailed. So that is fresh from the horse's mouth, so to speak, that they think it might be week commencing the 5th of September, but it might well be more likely the end of that week. So my reservations, questions, ponderings before this were whether there was going to be a change in the questions being asked this year, because they've been largely similar for quite a long time now. And again, reading through the Clearinghouse website, I don't know that that's one of the changes, because it looks like they're trying to make the process work better for you guys, to have a better interface and to be a bit more modern. Okay, so I've never applied online, so I don't know whether that's been quite glitchy. Let me know, jump in the comments, let me know what's your experience of the current Clearinghouse website been like. What changes would make a difference to you? What would you be hoping to see? But it doesn't suggest or intimate any changes in the questions as such. So let me know your thoughts on that. Let me know what you've understood from what you're reading. But of course, it is all just speculation. And so, you know, what I had planned today is very different than what we are getting. Okay, I can see we've got 23 people joining us on Instagram as well. Hello to you all. Just to let you know on Instagram, if you want any questions that I'm definitely going to see in this live, you may want to duck over to one of my other socials, because those comments will appear on my screen. I can put them on, but if you just want to soak up the compassionate vibes, please stay where you are. Otherwise, it's Dr. Marianne Trent for Twitter, YouTube, LinkedIn, or I'm Marianne Trent or Good Thinking Psychological Services on Facebook. So there we go. That's my little Instagram specific. But if you are watching on Twitter, YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, give me a hello. Let me know you can hear me. Let me know you're here. So just like Laura has done. Hello once again, heading into round 2 once the website is open, of course. So yeah, so good to have you here. I recognize you as a little girl there in your little playhouse. So I'm guessing that means it was a no for your application. I think you had an interview, didn't you? But yeah, this is a fresh start. You know, it feels, I've always really enjoyed 1st of September for that feel, you know. I noticed the first of my favorite leaves on my favorite tree in my garden starting to go a bit yellow yesterday, and I was like, it's clearly run out of energy at the end of August. I know lots of people have been feeling the same, but of course there hasn't been a lot of rain. I've heard we might be getting a monsoon. No, not a monsoon. A cyclone. I read that earlier in the week. You know, if there wasn't enough to worry about already, fling a cyclone in, you know, it'll be right. And I also learned this week that I've got to keep my beasts at home for an extra day next week. I thought they were going back to school on Tuesday, but there's some sort of anomaly with the way they've written the term start dates. And then in tiny print said it's not basically starting that day because it's a teacher training day that they've just not written very well. So hooray, get them for an extra day. So yeah, have you got kids? Have you been keeping them with you over the summer? It's quite fun, isn't it? And yet still, my youngest, who is 6, at the end of every day, we do what's been your favorite part of the day? What's been your least favorite part of the day? And he always says the favorite part of his day has been me. So cute. Poor boy. Okay, Priya. I was definitely feeling a little anxious this morning, but I'm sure this feeling will pass with time. Yeah, absolutely, Priya. But we just, you know, we don't know quite what's coming. But we'll be ready for you when it comes, you know, and I'll be here for you when it comes as well. So, you know, I've been reflecting today on a year ago, because a year ago, the Clinical Psychologist Collective book was born. And a year ago, the Clearinghouse also threw, wasn't actually their fault, it was HEE last year, Health Education England, threw a hand grenade in the direction of applicants last year too, because they announced there was going to be funding changes, didn't they, for people who'd previously had HEE funding over the last couple of years. And they didn't consult, they didn't warn, they didn't give any kind of prepare yourself. They just went on the 1st of September and lit up the internet when it came to psychologies. Hi, Jade. I can see that one of my peers has just joined me on Instagram. Yes, recognized your name. Good to see you here, Jade. It's Dr. Jade, to give you your specific title. Hi, Jade. Anyway, if anyone else wants a specific hello, not even sure Jade did. Hi, Jade. If anyone wants a specific hello, then drop me a message in the comments and I will name check you. Am I the favourite part of your day today as well, like I am the 6-year-olds? It's okay if I'm not. But yeah, I know many of you have been at work just clicking the little refresh button to see if there might be an update at any point, and there hasn't been. But, you know, what we know about life is that we can never really predict what might happen, and we kind of need to be okay with just trusting ourselves to respond in the moment with the best resources we've got at that time. Okay, we know that we can, you know, if we're really using all the compassionate stuff, we can trust ourselves to bring everything we need, you know, all of those resources, all of our best selves, all of our best learning, all of our most mindfully present selves when we need to bring it to the table. Okay. And, you know, I know that my one of my close friends and colleagues won't mind me saying that we were talking about panic this morning. And I asked her, has panicking ever helped you before? And she was responded as like, no, no, it hasn't. And this was about a non-DClinPsy related thing. But panic is a sign that we are not in our window of tolerance. You know, it's definitely in the hyperventilating. It's not within the functional. Spat a bit then, sorry. Not within the functional, you know, the bit where we are at our best. So it's just worth thinking about whether I was doing it a bit myself there because I could hear the kids howling with laughter upstairs. Not watching me. I'm not that amusing. Making sure we're not wearing those shoulders as earrings, as I say to my clients, and just making sure we're taking breaths, okay? Because we're always going to have our best chance to be mindful and present and able to respond in the best, most adaptive way when we are in our window of tolerance. Laura says, will be interesting to see if this means an extra week or so for the submission deadline too. Yes, it will. And originally, so when I was completing, it used to run from the 1st of September until the 1st of December. So you get those 3 whole months, which was really a nice chunk, you know, like a whole season to watch yourself progress. It also gave me 3 whole months to fill my form in, which I did. I was one of those people that did it every day. Any spare moment I've got, and I'm a bit like that when I'm writing books as well. Any spare moment, I'm like laptop open, tap, 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 tap. I'm just quite resourceful at using the time when I have it. But I wonder whether they might revert to rolling it over to December or later in November as a deadline, because I think they made that shift to give people more time to sort out remote sort of things. So yes, it's a very good point, Laura. Will they give some of the time back that they have taken? Because it's not a problem necessarily if the questions are all going to be the same as next year. And I would always say start again. Start again. Even if you got interviews last year, maybe not quite so much if you got interviews last year, because that's obviously enough. But if if you got reserve list interview places, start again, you know. But I would always start again, because you ought to have really changed a lot, even in your ability to reflect and to be self-aware in a year. I've changed a load in a year, you know. I've certainly changed loads in 2 years. 2 years ago, I was working part-time in the NHS, working part-time for myself. The first of the lives was next door in the other room. I now have like a whole clinic set up, and I've certainly got more comfortable on camera. I'm more useful to you. I know more. I'm more self-aware. I know what I look like more on camera. I'm all right with that. I wear less makeup than I've ever worn. I'm all right with that. I've grown in different directions. I did wonder if I applied for the DClinPsy without telling them that I had been working as a clinical psychologist, whether I'd get called for interviews, but I think it's probably massively illegal to try and apply, but I'm almost tempted to have a go. Take the doctor off my title, and yeah, find someone to act as a reference. But then no one else is going to want to act as a reference for me because it won't look very good for them, will they? And they'd probably recognise my name and be like, she's already a clinical psychologist. But I was quite tempted to see what kind of form I could write now. And maybe, I guess if I wasn't writing a book, maybe what I'll do is after the Aspiring Psychologist Collective is finished, I will, I might give it a go. I might write a form. And then I might share my form with my membership. So from October onwards, I might well share my form. That's what I might do. It's a little bit of a bonus in there. I hope it didn't take me weeks though. Weeks and weeks, like it did months and months, because I'll miss the deadline, won't I? But I might do that. So yeah, that's my plan. Someone's just put loads of purple love hearts up, which is always nice on Instagram. Feel free to fill my feed with love hearts if you're watching on some other medium as well. It's always nice to have a bit of love, isn't it? And NS, whoever you are, says you can type my application if you like. I don't know you though. It wouldn't be right. It's got to be you. You are enough, NS. You definitely are. You've got this. And so I've just spotted that I missed the best name. Emma is lovely. How can I get on the doctorate? Be yourself. Be comfortable with being yourself, I would say. Just talk the talk and walk the walk. Reflect on what you've learned about things. Yeah. It's tricky because what I was starting to say a moment ago was, if we knew what the questions were, if we knew the questions were going to be the same, you absolutely could make a start now. I know some people have been working on it over the summer and already felt like they had a really kind of quite complete form already, ready to roll. And I always think, hold the line a little bit, because I would expect, and I did experience, changes in every supervision session almost. I used to be that girl that kept, a reflective practice journal. And after every kind of interaction or assessment I'd done with a client, I would reflect on that. And so even if you've written your application already, certainly if you need to or want to submit early to save the £10, if they do that again this year, then do that. Look after your finances. But I'm wondering whether I don't know, you should be changing. You should be reflecting. You should be growing. So don't hurry to submit that form. Sometimes there can be great value if you have done it with popping it in the drawer, even for a month, and coming back to it and reading it aloud to yourself and just being like, is this still me now? And something I've noticed a lot is that it's easy for me to say, being incredibly verbose, very wordy, is that people often say things more than they need to and in longer ways. So certainly what I've got pretty good at in editing books and editing the Aspiring Psychologist Collective is being a little bit more succinct and not using the same words more than once if possible, because it reads quite monotonously. And if you're trying to demonstrate that you're capable of working at doctorate level, we don't want it to be boring. No, we don't. We don't want it to be too repetitive or too, I do know, it's not lost on me. I've just used the word repetitive twice. um, that wouldn't happen if I was transcribing this and putting it on my form. I would definitely edit that bit out, or I would use a different word. Thesaurus.com may well be your best friend for thinking about flexible ways of using the English language to say the same thing in a slightly different way. And hot words for that are role and job and position. Just try to mix it up a bit. I don't want to read. I know the word job is smaller and so is less words. But let's just be a little bit creative about the way we write so that we're not being too boring. So we're not wasting characters as well by saying the same thing over and over again. So I know you'll all be probably aware already that it's good practice to put things in full the first time you use them, but then you can put abbreviations in brackets, okay? But given how many different specialties there are, it's always a good idea to put it in full to begin with. Even CBT, I think, should be written as cognitive behavioral therapy the first time you write it. Even if that is earlier in your form, in one of your jobs, you write that bit in full and then put it in brackets. But somewhere on your form, there needs to be everything in full that you've written in brackets. Otherwise, someone may misunderstand what you're writing, and we don't want that. Because you might then get scored differently, or you might be overlooked. So always be as explicit as you can. This is the difficult balance, says NS. Too serious and too informal. How to give a little bit of personality without humour, because that's dodgy ground. It's tricky. I don't know. I did use a bit of humour, I have to say, NS. I did. I just find myself quite amusing. So there was, a little bit of mild humour in mine. But it's got to feel authentic to you. Yeah. I think what you might find really useful, NS, is recording yourself where the questions are asked. Just see what comes out. Imagine it's an interview, because I think sometimes you can really, when there's pressure to answer a question, you can somehow bring your best game. So record what you're saying, perhaps as a voice note, although on my iPhone, my voice notes are very annoying. They just stop recording. But if you just set yourself up a Zoom account, you can do that for free, and just record yourself speaking. If you don't want to have your camera on, you don't have to. But I find it's more useful to have my camera on because it's a bit more like having a chat. So record, just see what comes out. Because it should be you. It should be your answers. It should sound like you. Okay, so it is supposed to be reasonably formal as writing. So it isn't as informal as sort of like writing a story or writing a reflection. Yeah, so no slang terms, no cause. Yeah, but it should sound like you. You should be the only one who could have written that form. Absolutely. If I know you, which I wouldn't, if I know you and your name was taken off the form, I ought to be able to almost hear your voice and think, well, I know who that is. That's NS. Of course it is. Amazing, smashing out the park there. Your own unique slant and take on psychology and the world today, and how you plan to bring your unique self to the saviour of the NHS, of course. Oh dear. Emrys, the applications are closed. Yes, we were expecting them to have opened today, and they haven't. But if you keep an eye on the website, or trust me to do that for you, I will keep an eye for you and let you know. If you sign up to my mailing list, I will let you know as soon as I hear that they're open. I will email you. Yeah, you can do that by clicking the link at the top of the bio where you're watching and then signing up. Come on board. We've also got the Aspiring Psychologist membership opening tomorrow for another 15 people at 8 a.m. So you can only join that if you join the mailing list. If you join the waiting list for the membership. So hop in there now if you like me and you think I've got some useful things to say, then imagine how great the membership is. It gets lovely reviews. So yeah, you can check that out as well. And there's links to that in my bio. But that's an aside. But yeah, if you are in the membership, you'll get to hear me unveil the form that I've filled in for myself when I get round to doing that. So it's my pledge to you. We've got loads of other great stuff coming as well. If you are looking to make this your most compassionate application season yet, we've got a totally free 8-week mindfulness course starting with a qualified mindfulness practitioner. We've also got a research clinic. We've got our monthly CBT session. And we've got our monthly Zoom session with me. And we've got another session as well. Yes, we have got another mystery session, which I'll tell you about if you join the membership. But it's going to be great, and it's going to be really great for busting your stress levels. And all of that comes for just £30 a month. That is what you'll pay for as long as you join the membership. So if prices do go up, that is what you pay. And people are finding it really, really useful. But this isn't a sales pitch. This is about helping you. But it'd be remiss of me not to say how you can take our relationship to the next step if you want to. And the same goes with the Aspiring Psychologist. No, not that one. The Clinical Psychologist Collective, which is celebrating its first birthday today. If you haven't read that, it gets great reviews. But of course, if finances do not allow you to pay for your professional and personal development right now, the Aspiring Psychologist podcast has 38 episodes currently that you can catch up on, with episode number 39, and it is a good one, coming out on Monday at 6 a.m. So yeah, there's lots of ways that you can work with me, depending on what your budget is, and I pledge to you, I will always make free content for you. But if you're ready to take our relationship to the next step, there's ways for you to do that. So a Facebook user says, I would definitely put humor into the last section where you describe some extra stuff about yourself. Yes, that is where I put it. Oh, I feel like I might know who you are, Facebook user. Yeah. Does your name begin with E? Maybe not. I feel like I recognise the way that's written, but it might. You might not be. Yeah, you might not be. And Emily says, the Clinical Psychology Collective book is really interesting to see how different people's backgrounds are, etc. Yes, it really is. And the Aspiring Psychologist Collective, as a little sneak peek behind the scenes, has got a really great focus on people's battling through adversity this time. And there's lots of reflections and accounts on people's own relationship with their mental health and how they have experienced that has made them a more compassionate, well-rounded, attuned, empathic professional. And that's a definite shift. I think there was definitely some of that in the DClinPsy, but this is very different. And I wonder if that reflects the changes in the application season and the pressure that we apply to our aspiring psychologists in the time, because the DClinPsy Collective was either trainee psychologists or already qualified psychologists. And like me at that time, I'd been qualified for 11 years when I wrote that. It's now 12. And so, it was just a slightly different environment, slightly different pressures, So it's interesting that when I qualified, it was just off the back of a recession and there were no jobs. And I wonder whether we're kind of going to end up going that way a little bit. But I would think not for mental health jobs. I would hope that they will remain a very important focus in the way that they didn't seem to be in 2011 when I qualified. It was 10 years, now it's 11 years. Yes. So I don't know what I said before. I think that's right. 2011 is when I qualified. And it's just like they just thought, where can we save money? Oh, all those qualified psychologist jobs, and we're going to drop some of the training places. We don't need any of those. We don't need those. And so there was like no jobs to be had anywhere. Most of my cohort were out of jobs by the time the course finished. And so it was, I don't think that will happen to the same extent again, because of all of the very important conversations that we've been having in the media about how badly mental health services are needed. So I would hope that 3 years from now, we are not having the situation where our newly qualified, which could be you, or you could be well on the way to that by then, are struggling to find employment. So it's interesting when I look at my reflections from, Facebook memories will do your reflections from however many years ago. But certainly 11 years ago when I qualified, it was, a case of keep getting pipped to the post by already qualified psychologists for jobs. It's kind of hard to compete with someone that's already been working for a couple of years when you are newly qualified yourself. So have you got any questions? I did have a question given to me already in advance, and it was, how can I make time for application without it taking over my life? Okay. And I think, knowing what I know now, I would probably give myself pockets of time where I was not going to have any distractions. So I'm not having any other browsers open. I'm not on call to anybody. I would give myself, even 20 minutes, 15 minutes. I would jump on Zoom and I would ask myself that question and I would answer it live on record. Okay. And I would sift for gold, like panning for gold. I would sift the nuggets out, see what came out. There might be something different each time you answer that question, but I would just keep trying to plan some time in like that so that you can sift mindfully for gold. And you can transcribe very cheaply on what's it called? On rev.com, like 25 cents a minute. So you could get it transcribed if you wanted to, or alternatively, if you wanted to use your voice notes on I think Otter AI do free transcribing as well. Have a look at Otter AI, see what you can get for that. But also on my iPhone, you can use the audio dictation thing, and then your words, if you speak slowly enough, your words will appear. And it is a bit annoying. That's why I stopped using it, because it will suddenly stop and you're like, you missed all what I said now. You've got to press it again. But if you're looking for free ways of recording your voice and having it appear magically as words, that is how I would do it. So that is how I would do it. I, may even do some of that in the car, just pop a recording device on my phone and talk to myself as I drove. I would try to make sure that the time I was having as dead time was useful. So I do enjoy cooking and unwinding, but I do use that for listening to podcasts, because I find that sometimes being half distracted helps my brain to really think in a different way. So maybe listen to some of my podcasts and see what it provokes and inspires for you, and then have a notepad to hand. It's what I do when I'm listening to podcasts. So when I'm cooking, I'll suddenly oh no, I'll write something down. Just be ready for your genius moments of inspiration to strike you. So we've got a little expert tip here. Helena Ariadne, beautiful name. Use dictate in Word or in Teams. Start a meeting with yourself and turn on transcription. Who knew that was a thing, Helena? I didn't know you could do that in Teams. That's very good. And then will it record that, or will it be in the chat and then you can copy it out of the chat? I don't think I've got dictate in Word. I think that might be like an additional thing that you have to pay for. I don't think I get that on my Microsoft 365, but they might well have that within the trust that you work in. So if you've got a trust laptop, and also, you know, technically speaking, this is an NHS job, and you are officially, or you certainly always used to be, allowed to use time within NHS time to apply for other NHS jobs. So if you're being quite transparent with your team and your supervisor about, you know, applying for the NHS funded doctorate, could you negotiate some time in your work week to really focus in, even an hour a week, to get that in your job plan? So over the next few weeks and months, you've got time set aside specifically within work time when you're not too burned out. You know, this is what we don't want. We don't want you to be utterly exhausted. Could you negotiate some time in a week or a fortnight as a predictable, planned occurrence where you can do that within work time? Because not everyone realizes you can do that. So when I'm seeing clients, they don't often realize that they can go to mental health appointments within work time. I think that's some sort of legal right. Employers have to do that. And you can, if you work for the NHS, you can go for your NHS interviews within NHS time as well without having to take leave. It's a bit complicated if you don't want to tell people that you are planning on leaving, but you know, certainly in every assistant role I have been in, I was transparent about what I was doing. But it depends who's around. You know, if you're working from home, that is easier. But I would always be transparent about that being in your job plan, and that's what you're doing. Because when I worked in a large psychiatric hospital, for example, I don't know how I maybe wouldn't have wanted to work on my form with so many other people around. It felt like a precious baby. But yeah, have that conversation with your supervisor if you feel able to do so. I'm just going to have a little drink of water. Feel free to drop any thoughts in. And if you're watching on Instagram, I haven't seen any questions, but oh, hold on. Mindfulness Jess, how do you keep up to date with research and literature? It's a very good question, Mindfulness Jess. It isn't one of my specialties. So I try to listen to books on Audible. I'm not great at reading research these days, but I know you can get an app that summarizes books into like 1-page digests. I can't remember what the name of the app is. Be good if I could, wouldn't it? If you Google it, it will tell you. But that's a really useful way of making sure that you're going to like the gist of what is being said in a book. If you like the sound of the summary, if it sounds like you might then go on to read the slightly expanded summary. And if you like the expanded summary, then it's a good indication that you're going to really like the book. So I think there might be a small fee to pay, but there might be a free trial around that. It might just get slightly loud because I've just seen another question come up on Instagram. I can't usually see them. The natural psychologist says, oh, they've sent a request to be in my live. I don't think I can do that. And that's probably accidental. You know, when you accidentally do that on Facebook. Someone's done an angry face for me on my live here. Facebook actually likes that. Facebook likes an angry face because it makes people think that something's coming on. So you did I say something that made you angry? Or has your kid been in and like pressing all the angry buttons? Let me know. What have I said that's evoked a strong reaction within you? So the natural psychologist says, is 43 too old to apply? Definitely not. Are there any courses that accept older applicants? To my knowledge, all of them. You know, it's a protected characteristic, isn't it? Age. You can't discriminate. Listen, if you haven't already, the natural psychologist, have a listen to the episode with Deborah Kingston. I can't remember off the top of my head what number that is of the Aspiring Psychologist podcast. I'm going to say it might be 30. I'm going to say it might be 30 or thereabouts. So yeah, have a listen to that episode because she trained later. She's wonderful. She's lovely. And people have given really lovely feedback about that. But I don't believe there is such a thing as too old. Certainly when I was training, and that, as I said, started in 2008, there was someone who was 43 when they started, and that was the oldest person in our cohort at that stage. But they are still working and enjoying doing so. And there was real value to having older people and younger people and people of all ages and abilities in a cohort, because we've all got our own unique skills and talents and things to bring to the table. So do not be put off by your age, and you will have unique abilities to reflect. And if you are a parent already, that brings a whole lot to reflect upon, doesn't it? I'm releasing a reel tomorrow, which is feedback from my children. Thanks, guys. It's one to watch. So yeah, right. I had one here from Veronica. What do you think about applying even though I'm not feeling ready? I started my AP post a month ago, and I feel like by the end of it, I'll have learned so much, but I don't want to rush it. Well, to you, I would say, there isn't a race. It's not a race, It would be better and more compassionate to feel that by the time the questions were potentially asked to you at interview in May, June, possibly April time, that the answers came effortlessly to you. By the time I was successful, I had been in my second paid AP post for just a couple of months, actually. But by the time I left, I'd been in it 6 months. But I already had quite a lot of experience before that I was able to reflect upon. So I still enjoyed the process, Veronica, of applying over 3 years. So the first time was very chancing my arm. The second time was, if I'm really lucky, I may get somewhere here. And the third time I was like, no, I believe it's my time and I'm ready for the next step now. And indeed it was. So I would say there's no danger in applying. I was told when I was applying that some courses like to see perseverance. They like to see you applying when you've been knocked back and not got interviews, and applying, and then, trying again. So I think if you can afford is it £40 application fee, there's nothing, nothing ventured, nothing gained. But what would be most best, don't use that in your form, that's not grammatically correct. What would be most compassionate would be for you to be comfortably in your stride, writing your form, performing an interview, and then being on the course. What we don't want is for you to be like I was when I started my undergraduate degree in forensic science and I hadn't done chemistry. It was not my time. I was not ready for the next step. I felt like I was actually the bottom of the class, and I was like, I'm so massively, massively out of my depth. And had I had to hold a clinical caseload, have some sort of responsibility, that was not for me. I don't want that for you, Veronica. I don't want that for you. I want you to feel able. But, if you do manage to get a place on the interviews and you manage to get offered a place, then I would say it is your time. So yeah, it's absolutely personal choice. There's no golden age or there's no golden ticket answer. If you want to apply, then apply. So long as you've got the essential criteria, then there's no harm to be done. And then you add again, I'm not fully ready, and it would be rather luck than being ready that would get me a spot. I wonder if this is me being pragmatic and practical, or rather my insecurity getting in the way. Could be a little of both, but also we have to be mindful that some courses, if you meet the essential criteria, you might then get invited to a selection test anyway. And if you do really well at that, then you'll get offered an interview. And so you can find yourself being interviewed before you thought you might be. So yeah, just have a look at which courses you're going to be applying for. But you do never know, But when I had my interviews, I felt excited, a bit daunted, but kind of ready. And that's how we want you to feel, not just like with massive imposter syndrome. Um, in the grand scheme of things, a year is, not a great chunk of time. He said that to a dying man, it's forever. But to somebody who's going to have a rich, fulfilling, enjoyable, long career, that 1 year is not a massive amount of time, and won't even lead to a massive difference in salary in that time either, in the grand scheme of things. And people that are found today challenging, upsetting, distressing, will this matter in a month? Hopefully not, because hopefully the new website will be up and running and ready by then. Okay, so hopefully this won't even matter so much in a week. Hopefully we might be already in the open season. I think they said the tail end of next week. So hopefully in the next 2 weeks, this period won't matter, because we'll know what the process is, we'll know what the questions are, and then we can just apply ourselves to what is being asked. As Charlie says, so sorry, it's supposed to be a heart, not an angry face. Cooking whilst listening, so it must have slipped. It's all right, because apparently Facebook likes seeing angry faces and then sends more people to the live. So I enjoyed it. Thank you, Charlie. Okay, I don't think I've missed any questions in the Instagram. Has anyone else got any more questions? We've got about 10 minutes left of our planned time together today. So this will be your 5 to 10 minute warning, depending on how chatty you are. Or, when you're a bit thirsty, because you've had quite a salty tea, nothing like a glass of water when you feel like that. So it's going to get really loud for you guys. The natural psychologist says, how do we find out more about selection tests, or how to practice them, please? So I believe there are test papers that if they're using the what they call the reasoning judgment tests, when you get invited to do those tests, there are practice papers that you can do. And I think there are services which people don't speak terrifically highly of for the ethics of them, that will let you practice those. There's certain universities that use these logical reasoning tasks that I don't think I would pass, actually. So I probably wouldn't have applied to a uni that did that now. But I think there are ways and means of practicing that. But the mindfulness person says, I don't have AP experience, so it's hard to see, but I've worked under clinical psychologists and I don't have publication. Should I wait until I do? Now, if you've worked under clinical psychologists, then that's really, really great. But I think it's not necessarily so much the title of your job, so much as, what you've been doing and how you're able to reflect on that. So it shouldn't be a list of I've done this, 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 and this. So what? So what? It's about what you have learned from that and what you're reflecting on from that. So Anvita says, yes, questions above. I don't know what you mean, Anvita. Have I missed one? Oh, I have missed one. Sorry. It's 2 questions. I'm so sorry. Ama, I'm sorry if I've said your name wrong. Do we need to be a BPS member to apply? No. No, you don't. And I am not a BPS member now, actually. So I quit my BPS membership. So I only used to pay for BPS membership because they used to send me like a job thing with the magazine when I was an aspiring psychologist. But once I got on training, I was like, well, I don't need this now. So I stopped paying at that point. I think I then didn't get any of the surveys for the alternative handbook, though. I think they only go out to BPS members. So bear that in mind when you're reading any alternative handbooks, is that not everybody gets invited to do them. So Anvita says, any advice for coping or prepping for selection tests and interviews and tasks? So yes, sorry, Anvita, I missed that question. But yeah, just let's do this bit, okay? Let's do this bit now, and then there will be more compassionate sessions for interview season. But let's use this time mindfully to give the best applications that we can. So it's a very important question, but I'm gonna seal that up. We're gonna keep it in a mindful box over here, and we'll come back to that in springtime. But now we're about autumn. We're about creating the best application that we can. Okay. I'm sorry, I managed to miss some. I'm really sorry. Emily says, not recommending this, but last year I wrote all of my statements over the course of 2 evenings just before applications closed. It was far from perfect, but I got 2 interviews. Yep, absolutely. So if you need to put it out of the bag, you absolutely can. Had it been a question of putting it off and putting it off, Emily, what was behind your decision to not spend longer? Or had you initially decided not to apply and then you were like, I'm doing it anyway? Tell us a little bit more behind the context of that. And we've got a question here from BPS Majui Blue. I have been working as, I'm really sorry, it's hard to see, as an ABA tutor, and now I have got a promotion as senior tutor, but I have not worked with clinical psychologists and only with children. Should I get more experience before applying? So good question. Sorry how loud that must have just got for you guys and how much of a view of my chin you got to. It's a good question. So they don't expect you to have worked across all of the core areas. So the core areas being children and young people, / families, working age adults, older age adults, and people with intellectual disabilities. Those are kind of 4 key placement areas. And so are kind of it's useful to have experience across those demographics, if at all possible. So I recognized that when I was applying, working with children was a bit of a weakness for me. I hadn't really had much experience of that. So I volunteered with the Brownies. And then off the back of my Brownies experience, in fact, I ended up talking about them and their wonderfulness in my interview. I was then offered a place working in a youth prison. So it's not a deal breaker that you've only worked with children, because of course you're probably working with the families as well. You probably are working with the parents. And I know when I worked in CAMS, I often did therapy sessions for the patients, for the parents, or caregivers, because that was thought to be the most appropriate resource at that time to help that child. And if you're working with systemic, then you're working with the family as well. So that's another way to tick off the adult. And of course you are an adult. So it might be worth thinking about where you could be a bit more flexible so that you're including more of the other areas. But by the time I got on, I'd already been a home carer. I'd already worked in an older adult secure service, and I'd worked with children and young people in the Brownies and youth prison, and I'd worked with people with physical disabilities, including brain injuries. So I'd had, I think the only one I'd never worked in was intellectual disabilities. So I'd say you can afford to have, you're probably going to have, I was about to say you can have 1 or 2 Achilles heels, but it's probably absolutely possible to have 3 Achilles heels, so long as you're really able to reflect and demonstrate why you are ready for clinical training. I think that's probably fine. Yeah, but you might need more years of experience if you don't have the breadth of experience across the different demographics. Hope that is helpful. And I know we've had so NS says, I'm having a little issue in that I'm getting caught up on the scoring criteria for all 4 choices and trying to put it into the form. Should I abandon that idea and just type what I truly feel? Yeah, I think so. So can you readily access the scoring criteria now? Because when I was applying, it was like every now and then, the scoring criteria would be slipped into the realms of being, and you suddenly find, the scoring criteria for a particular course, and it was like, oh, are they, I don't know the answer to that. Are they as open now, NS, about that? Let me know. Sorry that I missed those comments, everybody. So sorry, and later. Thank you for letting me know. Facebook user says, I'm writing questions on Twitter. Oh, am I not seeing Twitter? Maybe the comments aren't coming up on Twitter. I've never seen a Twitter comment, actually. So I'm really sorry. If you're watching on Twitter, please do drop your questions here. I'm so sorry. I've never seen a Twitter comment. I might need to look at how I give permission for that, but I would have thought it would just happen automatically. So I'm really sorry if you're watching on Twitter and you're like, why is she ignoring me? I just thought all the comments, excuse me, another spit. I just thought all the comments came. So I'm going to probably say that's the same question below. So how can I prepare for the deductive reasoning test without breaking the bank? I'm looking at Manchester and have to apply to commutable distance unis as I have a 6-year-old. I've got a 6-year-old as well. Just got back from football training. Really late for a 6-year-old, I think. He just got back as I was preparing to go live. So he was wheedling ice cream out of us just before I started this live. I would say, so is the question that you're trying to think about that now because you are not wanting to apply to Manchester if you're not going to be able to do the deductive reasoning tasks? And so if you can't do the deductive reasoning tasks, would you then use your, one of 4 to pick a different course that doesn't use those? Say I've got a 6-year-old, but I don't know. We went to the sea recently and it was glorious, absolutely glorious. If, I don't know, part of me might be tempted to pick up sticks and move for a couple of years for training, take the 6-year-old with us. But it's not always easy because if you're away from supports, I know that that's what keeps us here, is that we've got supports near us. So I know it's not always that easy. But children can be adaptive and flexible as well. So yes, maybe think about the applications right now and then trust yourself to learn what you need to learn and to adjust and adapt and flow come spring to think about the deductive reasoning tasks. For now, let's just think about really producing the best application that you can. And for some people, that will be, so Emily, for some people that will be something done very quickly. For me, that's not the case. For me, I needed longer, which is quite interesting because often I'm a bit of a procrastinator and then we'll bash something out at the last minute. But for me, that wasn't the case for this. This felt too important to me. So I was doing a master's, I was working full time, I'd had a car crash, I'd split with my partner. Like it's a difficult time. It's a difficult time. And yet still I was making very key times to write my DClinPsy application form. So Hannah says, will it matter if I've only worked under counselling psychs, currently working directly under the consultant? No, I don't think so. So I worked under a forensic psychologist just before I got on the training course. It's about having qualified supervision, and if they can be aware that you're pursuing the clinical doctorate and try to make sure that you are being really clinically focused on what you're doing. And perhaps there might be other people in the trust nearby that are clinical psychologists, and maybe you could go along to group supervision or something with them as well. Also, it might be really helpful for you to consider the clinical, what's it called? The aspiring psychologist membership. People are really benefiting and saying they find it really helpful to get up close and personal, not only to myself, but to the other guest clinical psychologists in the membership, so that they're getting a really good feel for ClinPsych and the way that we do things and the way that we practice. So Emma, thank you, pronounced it almost correctly. It's Ema, I'm so sorry. Ema. NS, join a group on Facebook. Someone will always share the alternative handbook on there. Oh, is that what the question was? For the alternative handbook, do you need to be BPS? So yeah, I think you do need to be a BPS member to get the alternative handbook. But as you said, NS, there are ways of getting hold of a copy if you need one. Is there any way you can look at examples of personal statements? I don't know that that's been done. I don't know that people have. So I think there might be some examples of people on YouTube reading their forms that have been successful. So that might be a good place to look. But I don't know if it's like a public. It's not like when you were at uni and you can go and look at people's dissertations. I don't think it's quite that transparent. So Anvita says, thank you. You're welcome. Lauren, hi, Marianne. I can't believe how quickly this season has come round again for everyone. Yeah, I know. Emily. So yeah, sorry, I like to put people's comments on. Emily, I was a little unsure about applying because I've only been in my AP job since September, although I had several years of other experience. I wasn't sure about asking for a reference so soon and all of that practical stuff, so I was dithering a bit. And then when I decided to apply, I procrastinated because I didn't know what to say. I see. So, that's really useful point, Emily. Thanks for raising that. Never be shy about asking for a reference. It's very much expected that people will move through this career. So don't make it think that it reflects really badly on you. They know when the application season is, they know that. So if you think there's a chance that you might want to apply this year, whoever you are, not just Emily, no matter when you joined. So I joined in February and then had interviews in the April. I think she was I don't think she can't have been my referee because she wasn't my supervisor when I started, but she would have been. If I'd only just started, she would have been, and it would have been great. So Emily, I definitely know people who have got on with the CAMS or only adult experience. Yes, I think it's about the way you reflect, about the way you grow, about the way you demonstrate your growth, not necessarily how many areas you've worked in. So people have requested the scoring criteria through the Freedom of Information request, and they've been made public for some universities. Other websites have it on their website for transparency. That is very good to know. So I'm going to look that out as well. Yeah, it's been changes with the FOI. Also, some universities give little nuggets in their opening days with regards to scoring. Very, very useful. Thank you for that, NS, whoever you are. Right, we have been chatting for an hour and I hope that's been super useful. Don't forget, you can grab your copy of the Clinical Psychologist Collective. There's a link with this video or in the bio. We have the Aspiring Psychologist Collective, which you can register for more information about, which is coming out in October. And tomorrow, the 2nd of September at 8 a.m, we have 15 more spaces becoming available for the Aspiring Psychologist membership, but only if you're on the waiting list. So do sign up. Going to my website. There's more information on. I think there's more information on my website. Be a bit remiss if there wasn't. I'm not actually sure, which is really awful. It's definitely on my link tree, and if I haven't put it on my website, then I am a moron. I think it might be on there, but now I say it, I'm not sure. I need to make sure and add a page if there isn't. I think I probably got a bit click happy with it being on my link tree and forgot about my website. So check out my link tree, Dr Marianne Trent, but it's at the bio, top of the bio of all of my social channels, apart from TikTok. But yeah, thank you so much for joining me. Thank you so much for letting me help guide you through this process. And if you've got any questions or any feedback at any point, or if you'd like to leave me any reviews for anything, I'd be so grateful. So Instagram, I'm going to come and say goodbye to you in a moment. But for the rest of you, and I'm really sorry, people of Twitter, if I've missed your questions, I will come back and respond to them in Twitter tomorrow or later. So I'm really sorry about that. But thank you for joining me. And there will be another compassionate session, which was scheduled for the 10th of October, but I think we might do another one before that, once we actually know when the applications are open. So keep an eye on my socials for that information, which is coming. All right, take care. Have a nice evening. Bye.